Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name's Bill. I'm with CoreLogic in Buffalo. I'll be showing you various things on Matrix today. If you have questions, just put it down in the chat box that you have. Jane will then pass those on so we can any questions you have. I mean, you're still getting used to the system. You've been using it for a while. I think you're finding it to be a pretty useful system to work through and pretty intuitive, but I mean, you still have questions. And I may be able to show you a couple things that you hadn't even seen yet. So anyways, I've already logged on. At the home page. Let me just kind of quickly identify this Market Watch feature. What it does is it allows you to see what activity you have as far as inventory in your particular area. Now you will need to go in and actually customize it to look in the towns that you work in, zip codes, map area, whatever you want to use. If I were to use it right now, it's showing new listings, 253 listings, but unfortunately, those are coming from Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, all the other subboards. So right now, it's not useful for me. What I'd want to do is come down and first identify what section do I want to set up so that I can see single family properties, lots of land, whatever. Now, what I'm going to do is use the cross property, which will allow me to bundle those different properties into one screen. And for your area, that might be very useful. So I'm going to click on cross property. That's what I'm selecting to set up. And then I'll come over and click customize. And really all you're doing is identifying what geographic areas do you need to see these listings coming from. So I'll come over here and I'll say, well, I want to know any single family properties that come on the market. I'm also interested in any condos, and I definitely need to see lots of land that are becoming available. So I'll choose what I need there, and then I come over here and pretty much set up where I'm going to be looking. Now it looks like a typical search screen that you'd use when someone's trying to find a house, but here I just want geographic areas to pop up. So I'm not going to be putting in price and bedrooms and all that good stuff. So what I can do is come down and say, well, maybe I just want to know everything that's happening in the county of Shenango. Got that. And now this will always show me everything that's happening in that particular county. Or if I want to be maybe a little more general, I could come up and I could use a map search to start this process. So here I've already got Oneonta here, and I'll come over and look at the Shenango area. And let's say maybe I need to know really what's happening in this general area here. So notice over here, you have your drawing tools, rectangle, radius, polygon. So I could say, you know what, I want to know everything from Poolville over to here, down here, over this point, come up along here, and then go back to the starting point. So right there, I've identified the geographic area that I need to be aware of. Now I could have multiples of those. I could move the map and draw yet another polygon or rectangular radius if I choose. And I'll come down, click on OK. And now I've identified where it is that I need to know the activity or inventory that's popping up on the market. And that's all you do. It's basically just looking at the area. I'll come down here, click on save. And wait for it to save. Sorry for the delay there. I can't tell you why that's not saving. There we go. Okay. So now what I have here is for the last 24 hours, I can see that we've had one property go on as do not show, one pending, and one sold. And this will now tell me that activity. Now, not being real familiar with the area, I may have chosen an area that there isn't a lot of activity going on. Let me go back and just customize it. And I'll put in an entire county this time. I'll go back to my map search here, and I will clear that. If I just hover over this little red dot here, notice it allows me the option of deleting that shape. So I'll reach up, click on delete shape, say OK. And now I'll come down here and just make it a little more general. Just say, let's see, Shenango and Delaware. All right, come down and save again. I still have the same property types. Okay, so now within the last 24 hours, I can see that I've had 3 new listings, 1 price decrease. And by clicking on this link here, this will now show me what those 3 new listings are. All right, so kind of a handy way to quickly see the ever-changing inventory in your area. Now, I could go back home again, click on this, and go on to the next category. Well, which ones are, let's say, sold? Click on that. I can see there's been one sold property with that, and it'll now identify that. Now, I don't always have to return to the home page to see that next category. Notice this little arrow here. By clicking on it, it will now open up those other categories. So now I can quickly see, well, which ones are continue to show with that and so on down the line. All right, so that was done just with 24 hours as my time frame. I could go here and just say, well, what's happened in the last 7 days, just to give you a better idea of what you might be seeing as the market heats up. Okay, so now we have new listings. Click on that, and it will identify those new listings. And you could sort it too. Maybe I want to sort it by area. So I could click up here where it says area, and now it's breaking it down by alphabetical listing, which may make it easier to kind of identify these property locations. So that's what you're getting with the with that Market Watch. I'll head back home again here. All right, so choose to use that if you just want to see this ever-changing inventory here. Typically, you probably want it to be the last 24 hours, so you're seeing most recent activities happening along the way. Now, if I've been sitting on the system working, adding listings, doing other things, and I want to come back and see if there's been anything new that's been added, notice this refresh button down here. By clicking this will now take a second look and see, has anything new been added on? So it's not happening real time. I have to click that refresh button to update the number of listings that I'll be seeing. All right, and you can always go back in and customize it to add in a certain area or a school district or whatever it is that you need to be keeping tabs on. Now, let's say this is nice, but it's not something I really need to see right there front and center. I could actually pick up this header bar right here, hold down my left mouse button, and I could drag it and put it in a different location. So now I can rearrange things. Maybe I want to see really who's been going into my One Home portal. So I could grab this. I'll put this up top and center. So that way I'm aware of the more important things as soon as I log on. All right, so that's just one little feature that's helpful to use. Let me go in to do a couple searches. Now, if you have any questions about searchings, problem you've run into, just drop a chat to Jane and she'll pass that on. So anyways, here, I'm going to come down and just do a quick single family. All right. And I want to show you just a couple things with the features here. Let's say I want to figure out what are prices happening, what are values of properties in a certain area, maybe surrounding a given address. So I'm going to turn off these two statuses and I'll come down and look at the sold properties. And for this, I want to look at just what's happened more recently. So I'll change this date range from a whole year down to about a half year, 0 to 180 days back. And what I want to do is find out what has happened within a 1 mile radius of a certain property that I'm looking at. So right up here, notice it says within. I can click this and now identify what radius I want to start with. I'm going to start with a 1 mile radius. Now I could have put in any decimal portion of a mile up there too. I could have done 0.65 just to get that range rather than a whole mile. And then over here, I'll identify the address I'm going to start with. I'm looking at what's happening around 103 Bartlett. Oh, hopefully I can remember where Bartlett is. Is that 2 T's? All right. And I'm hoping that the computer will give me a suggestion at that point. At this point, it didn't. Is that Bartlett Ave? Should have given myself a little more information. No, I don't want to be on Toronto. I'm sorry, when I wrote down that address, I didn't notice what town I was in. I think I was, well, let me do one locally so I can try and show you what I'm talking about. And type in the address 243 Donnelly. And I'm hoping the computer then completes it, gives me that suggested location. In this case, I know it's in Amherst. And here it actually found that address. So it needed a little bit more information, like a town or zip code. And when I click on it, it's now looking at all solds that have happened within a 1 mile radius of that particular address. Now, unfortunately, this happens to be in my location here. And then I can go up and actually see where it is on the map. So here's the subject property that I use, that 243 down the lead. Here are all the other solds that have happened nearby. Now you may want to go back and refine that a little bit and say, well, we're looking at just other colonials or other ranches. So you could always go back up to the criteria, and I could say, you know what, let's look at colonials that have sold within that radius. I'll click right there. Happen to have 6 colonials that have sold nearby. And what I'm trying to find out is, what has been the average list price for those houses? How about the average sale price of those solds? And then I could go to results, take a look at what did pop up. Here are all the solds, and again, within that 1 mile radius. And I want to get this quick information about averages, medians, things like that. So I can reach up and I'll grab all 6 of these properties. And then what I want to do at this point is right down here, it's called quick CMA. So this will give you some rough numbers that will give you an idea of what's happening in that market. I'll go ahead and click that. And what I'm seeing up here at the top are those individual sales. So I can see number of bedrooms, square feet, things like that. I can see what the list price was for each one of these. What was the sale price? And then over here is kind of interesting. It's giving us some ratios. What was the difference between the actual original list price and the final sale price? In this case, they got almost 31% over their asking price, and it had been on the market for 35 days. Down here, we can see they got 86%, so they got about 11% under, 12% under what they're looking. So we can see where it started, and here's where it ended up. And took 98 days for that property to sell. And sometimes that kind of goes hand in hand. The lower the ratio, the longer it was on the market. And then here, maybe these numbers are really what you're looking for. What was the average? So we can see the average list price of all those properties, the average sale price, and how much more or less did they get on average for those. Now, sometimes the median might be a better indicator because we had one property that was way over market value, it seems. So maybe the median would be a better indication. So that high price that they got for sale isn't skewing our averages. So here we get a different indication. These are the median prices. Half the prices were lower, half the prices were higher. And it seems to be kind of still within the same range, a little shorter days on market. So that was the quick CMA. It just kind of gives you some rough numbers to get started with. Now, that is a PDF document. We have the little tab up here. Here's your print button if you did want to print that out. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and it'll take us back to those sold properties again. All right, so just some good information that you can pull up. Let's go back and do another search. What if you're trying to find several addresses? Maybe you've got someone, they call you and they've given you a bunch of addresses and they want you to pull up and verify if they're still active or whatever. With these boxes right here, you can actually type in individual addresses of multiple houses. So I'll come down here, I'll type in the 103 Bartlett again, jump over to street name. All right, come down here, I'm looking at another one. It happens to be for Christine. And one more, which happens to be, oh, I can't type in anymore. I've run out of spaces to type in. Notice this more button. By clicking this, this will allow you to open up a total of 10 input fields. So you could search for these multiple addresses. Have one more, 5 McCall. All right. And then down here, it's telling me I've got 2 matches. I may have needed a space in between the C and the second C there. I've only got one now. Let's get rid of that space. How come I'm not finding it? The other one, it could be maybe the status has changed. I'm not sure, but at least we did get 2 of those, so we can verify those are at least active or continue to show. And we could take a look at those, and they'll now pull them up and show us things like where they're located, price, all that good stuff. So when searching, it is sometimes helpful to be able to type in individual addresses. You could also have typed in any number of street names at that point too. And when someone says, we like this neighborhood, could you show us all the properties that are on these 4 streets that we give you? You could have typed every street with a comma in between each one, and it will take a look at what's currently active on those particular streets. This is also a great spot to find route numbers. Sometimes the way an agent will type in a route number is different than what you're thinking of. Maybe someone's saying, oh, we're looking for Route 20. And then, oh, that's State Route 20. Someone else says, no, that's County Route 20. And someone else will just type RT period 20. So if you're looking for a particular route number, this could be a good spot. I'm going to show you one that happens to be up in Ontario County, just because I'm not familiar with your route numbers that you might have there. But I'll do here, I'm looking for anything in Ontario County, up around Rochester. And then I'm looking for a particular route number that's called Route 20. And the way you do it, you type in asterisk 20, another asterisk. So in that point, I'm in the street name field, and I'm saying, let's look for any street that has a 20 in the address. Now, right now, I've only got one. I'm going to add in some solds just so we get a couple more properties popping up. And now we've got 10. And when I go to look at the map, we'll be able to see where this Route 20 is. Oh, that's obviously Route 20. And when I go to the results, this will show me how they've actually been entered into the system. So here, a couple of them happen to show County Route 20. Here's, they said State Route 5 and 20. And here we've got State Route 5 and 20 and something else after that. Let me show you a couple other examples of this. I'm going to go back to the criteria again, and I'm going to enlarge the area that I'm looking for. I'm going to go back and look at all solds that happened here. So delete out the 0 through 365. I'm now looking all the way back to 2001 for every sold that took place. And when I go to the results now, here's what I want to show you. Different ways that a route number may have been entered. Here we got CR for County Route 20. Here they were a little more descriptive, CORT period. And then we've got County RD period. And here we've got County Road. So right there, you can see how you may be missing the one property that you're looking for based on the way it had been entered in. And then here's something else. Everyone knows that property to be, oh, that's on Main Street, but it's also known as Route 5 and 20. But what it did do, it pulled out the route number that we were looking for. So sometimes when you're looking for that needle in the haystack address, this might be a way to do it. And again, how did I do that? Back in criteria, I went to the street name field. I typed in what it was that I knew would be in one of these streets, happened to be route number 20. And the asterisk on each side makes that a wildcard search. All right, so just wanted to point that little one out there. Let's get rid of it. Actually, I'll start with the brand new search. Here's another scenario too. Let's say we've got someone who's been living in a 1-bathroom apartment. And they're now looking for their first starter house, but they realize they need at least a bath and a half to keep their sanity. So I'll come down here and say I'm looking in Delaware County. All right. And we need this bathroom search to be kind of primary. So we're looking for properties that have at least a bath and a half. So I'll do 1+ for full baths. I'll do 1+ for half baths. And right now it's showing us there's 44 properties that match up, which is a good start. But what I want to point out is we're missing some properties in this case. And the reason being is I told the computer, make sure every house has a half bath. What about those scenarios where the house has a 2 full bath or a 3 full bath? And that's where we're losing a couple of properties. So I'm going to delete these 2 numbers out. Let's start a different search. And instead, I'm using this feature down here called total baths. Now, in fact, as I hover over it, notice that little info box that just popped up there on the screen. The last 2 lines are showing how you can start with a minimum starting point that will include 1.5 and 2, 2.5 and 3, and so on. So what's telling us to do is come down here and type in 1.1, 1 full bath, 1/2, and then put the plus after that. So that's now saying let's start at 1.5, but also consider 2s, 2.5, 3, and so on. We now have 128 properties in that same area. And I'll go up to results, open this up, and we'll be able to quickly see those properties that have the different number of bathrooms. Can't tell you why I'm so slow here today. But anyways, notice the bathrooms here, we've got 2 full. Those weren't even popping up in that first pass that we tried. Here we've got 5.1, a bunch of 2s and so on. And that's now showing us that we're getting the more properties just because we said it's not crucial that we have a half bath. We're just starting at 1.5 baths. All right, so here's another trick you can do too. When you're looking at a lot of properties like this, maybe you want to customize how that screen is actually showing up here. Actually, let me start with what you're typically seeing. You're typically seeing the agent single line up here. And that's what you get. You see that every single day. But you may be interested in adding some additional columns. So really, this is just a big spreadsheet. Maybe I need to know, well, what's the total acreage for any one of these properties? So here, if I reach up and click on address, you notice that little pointed finger? When I click that, that will now quickly alphabetize that list of street names. It's starting at this point from Z and going down, but if I click again, it just reverses that sort order. And you could do that with any column. Maybe I want to organize by price. I'll click on price here. There's the lowest price. And if I click again, it's now putting the highest price up at the top. Now, I want to see the total number of acres for each one of these properties as well. So I'll find some empty space next to one of the labels. I'm going to left click on that four-headed arrow, and it now allows me to remove that particular column, or in this case, I want to insert something new for my needs. I'll click insert, and you can come down here and search for whatever it is you're looking for. But in my case, acreage, it's already up here at the top, so that's an easy one. I'll click on acres here. That's now selected. Now I'll come down and click apply. So now pretty quickly, I now have the number of acres showing up. And for me, that's something that I'm always looking at rather than having to open up 20 listings to see what the acreage is. It's now front and center here. I want to doctor it up slightly. First of all, I'm going to grab hold of this header. Notice the four-headed arrow above the label. If I now left click, I can drag that to a different location. And let's say we have it right next to the address. It's still there, but unfortunately, it's so close to the address number that it's maybe harder to decipher those numbers. I have to really think about what am I looking at. If I reach up here again and get that four-headed arrow above or below that particular label, if I left click, I can now center that information. I'll now click apply. And the fact that we have a little bit of buffer area on each side of that acreage, that just makes it easier to spot and look at easily. All right, so you can customize these screens. You can put in any field you want. You can rearrange the order of it. You can even change the labels themselves. Let's say, you know what, this is nice, but I don't need that much space up there. If I reach up here and left click again, notice the cursor is flashing right next to num. I'm going to delete that entire label out here. I just hit my delete key. And now I get to choose what label I want up there. I'm going to just call this AC. Yeah, maybe they'll think that's air conditioning. Let me do number AC. All right. And then I'll come down, click apply. And now I have that always locked in there. In fact, if I want to save this is something I want to have every day when I do a search. Notice this little gear up here. By clicking this will now allow me to lock in the way I've created that screen. I'll left click on that. And right here, it's now allowing me to set that current display, that sort order, and the count per page as my default. All right, I'll click on that. I now have a new custom display, and notice up here, it's labeled as my agent single line. So anytime I need to, actually, that's going to open up for me every single day. Now, another thing too, as long as I'm here, I'm looking at the entire county, right? So as I scroll down, I hit bottom pretty quickly. Now I have to go to the second page. Click on that, and I just have to keep going page to page to page, and that's kind of an inconvenience. What I can do here is actually set the number of lines I want per page. So if you are finding yourself looking at hundreds of listings at a time, I could come down here and say, well, let's max this out at 500. In a moment, I now have the ability to scroll through the entire list without having to stop after every 25 lines. So we change the lines per page up here, and I want that locked in with my other custom display that I created. I'll just come back to the gear, click on it, and I can now set the count per page as my default as well. All right, so now every day I do a search, I'm gonna get the acres and I've got the multiple lines that I can scroll through. So make it work for you. Another thing too that's helpful too, when you're doing a search for mapping, I'll go up here and look at map. Now, right now, if you haven't set this up, you're probably looking at the Rochester area. And maybe that's just an inconvenience because now I have to drag the map back to my particular area. You can actually pick up the map just like I did before with the little hand. I can click and drag it to wherever it is and really like it to open up. Let's say I do the bulk of my business over here in Norwich, let's say. So I've moved the map, maybe I've zoomed into a particular area, and I want to lock that into place as well. So again, I'll go up to that little gear and I'm working with the map. And now it knows that and it says you want to set this map as your starting default. So by clicking that, it will always open up right over the town of Norwich here. So things that will just make it a little more convenient to go in and do a quick search for it, whatever you're looking for. Oh, by the way, I didn't think I showed you this one. You also have a drawing tool here. So very quickly, I could say, you know what, let's see what's happening around Norris here. And very quick way of doing it as opposed to the radius. The radius is kind of handy. I could say, you know what, let's look at everything that's happening within a 5-mile radius of South New Berlin. So I'll click, hold down my mouse button, and as I drag the cursor, notice in that little white box, there we are at 5 miles right there. And that's now my new search. Or I could use a rectangle and say, you know what, let's see what's happening here. And with any of these, you can grab the edge, get that little handle, and I could further expand that radius or lengthen this rectangle I've drawn. You also have a polygon. This is kind of handy too when you're down to a certain area. And let's say, you know what, I'm really looking for everything along Green Street up to 8 and over here to 80. So I could actually do this one where I can now click on this intersection and I'll just kind of draw my map, my line. Let's say come down here, I'll kind of create that little arc there, go over to 8, come back up the other side, and then go back to Green Street. So you can be much more specific with that polygon. So different ways of focusing on a certain area if you don't quite know what area you're looking for, but you can see it on the map. And remember too, you've also got the map option that can change to a satellite view. And then I could drill down to that and get an idea of what we're actually looking at. Also, as long as we're on the map, these are the tax parcels. If you click any one of them, it will now identify who owns that property. And I can also see there had been a listing back in 2009. So it is opening up history of this property. We can see it last expired then. And we also have the tax record. It'll identify who owns it. And we've got the lot dimensions too. So it's kind of interesting to be able to open up this information. And one thing I want to point out too, you notice the lot line here is kind of chopping off. No, maybe it's not. Maybe that is a separate building there. Oh, but like this one. Notice we're kind of cutting through the roof of that house. So sometimes the alignment of the overlays and the actual photograph isn't 100%, but it gives you a pretty good idea what the lot shape is there. And you can kind of see other details that may say, well, that's probably the actual boundary right there. So the maps are pretty powerful too. You get some good detail from this. And again, as long as I'm looking at maps, let me point this out. These layers are important because now I can actually click on this and identify different things. Maybe I just want to know, well, what school district are we in? When I click on this, it quickly identifies, well, we're in the Unadilla Valley. If I zoom out farther, we'll be able to see the other nearby school districts. Now, in this case, I like the map view. It's a little cleaner look, and it allows us to more easily see some of these other overlays. So here's the border of the Sherburne, Earlville. All right, so details that you don't typically see, then it's all done by these map layers. One I like too, like maybe we're looking at this area here, and I can see we've got a creek or a river running through it. I want to see if there's any flooding associated with that. So by clicking on this little group of layers here, I can come down and click on the flood zones. In this case, I can't. It's in red, and what that indicates, it says you have to zoom in closer to the map to get that level of detail. All right, so I'll come over to this little creek. I'll zoom in a little bit, and let's go back and try it again. Now I can click on the flood zones, and this will identify the extent that that little tiny creek does tend to flood. So here's the primary flooding area here, and that's called the 100-year floodway. But then this lighter purple indicates how much farther that flooding could extend outward, and that's called the 100-year floodplain. So we could see any properties that were in that area are now affected by that flooding. And here's that tiny little creek here, although I'm not sure which is causing the problem. It's probably this one here. All right, so we can now see those properties that would be affected by that potential flooding. And by the way, these are FEMA maps that we're using here. All right, so that's it. Just get familiar with these different options here. Now, if I had some properties, I did do a search back here earlier. Let's go to the larger area. Do I have any properties popping up? Maybe I don't know what else I put in that search, so I probably have a lot of things that are inconsistent with each other. Let's start a brand new search. The last time I was in your area, we didn't have a lot of styles to actually work with. So I was basically, I don't think I even used styles. I was just looking at all properties. But down here, I want to show you one of the features about the style function that you may or may be having some problems with. Let's say we're looking at a particular area. I'll come up here and I'll look in the county of Oneida or Aniata. I got Oneida. Aniata. Sorry about that. Let's do Delaware. I know I'll spell that one. All right, so I've got some properties here, and then I'm looking for styles. And let's say I'm starting with a 2-story style. We've got 49 here. Ideally, the clients are looking for a colonial, so I'll come down and also check colonial. I'm now down to 6. And I was going to go out on a limb too and say, do we have any transitional colonials, the newer styles of colonials that are being built? So I'll come down and also click on transitional. And I look down and we now have 0 matches. What's happening in this case is the agent would have to have checked off all 3 of these styles on the listing for me to have gotten any results. And down here, it's doing that. It's saying, let's look for a 2-story and that's also a colonial and a transitional. So we're looking for all 3 of those styles to be one listing. Instead, you'd want to use this option here called or. And what this is now doing is say, let's look for a 2-story or a colonial or a transitional. So we're giving equal weight to any one of those styles. And we now have 58 properties that are popping up. And when I go to results, I'll now be able to see all these different properties. In fact, you could even put the styles on the listing, just like we did before, where I left clicked. I could do this. I'll go insert, and here I'm looking for the styles to also appear. All right, so here's styles of residence. I'll highlight that, click apply, and in a moment I now have this style showing up. So we do have a colonial farmhouse. There's a 2-story. Here we've got a just a colonial and so on. I don't see any of the transitionals happening down here, but colonial historic. So sometimes you would be searching for one or the other, and just remember that or option. And how was that we got there? I'll go back to my criteria, and I just used this option here where I said or. So that could trip you up in the beginning when you're doing some searching. All right, let's do a brand new single family search here. Oh, and then if you hadn't attended any of the earlier classes, I want to show that down here you have the ability of adding additional search fields that aren't currently available up above. But down here, I was able to put in things like I was looking for heating fuel. I was looking for both propane and natural gas. Maybe you're looking for some other feature that wasn't available up there. And the way you do that, you want an additional field added. I'll click here. Maybe I'm looking for financing. Someone's asking me, well, we're looking for a USDA loan or something like that. I can go through this search and get down to financing. Or I could come down here and search for it. I'll just say, look, show me financing. Ah, there it is, possible financing. I'll highlight it, click add. And that's now, I had already put that one in earlier. Let's do another one. Public remarks. Let's say I'm looking for a feature that hasn't been identified anywhere in the listing, and I've kind of run out of any other possibilities. I'm going to look for public remarks here. Here it is here. By clicking on it, I can now add it in, and this will allow me to look for anything that the agent may have typed in the remarks section. Maybe we're looking for a fixer-upper or TLC or something like that, where maybe the buyers are looking for something that needs some help, and just to keep the price down, we're looking for something that will be something that they could now work on themselves. Once I click back, at the very bottom, we now have this new field down here. And how would you actually use it? Let's get up and look at a particular area here. Let's say we're looking in the county of Chenango. Got that. Got 130 properties. Have any of the agents typed in that this property needs is a fixer-upper or needs some TLC? Down here, I've now got this new field. And again, it's going to be a wildcard search. I'm looking for one word or phrase within the remarks section. So what do? You use that asterisk. I'll do TLC and then type in another asterisk. 8 properties actually found where the agent typed that word or phrase in there. Now, another option they might be using, rather than just stick with TLC, I'm going to type in a comma, which is now an or condition. I'll do a new asterisk, and I'll type in fixer-upper. I'll just do fixer. If anything, they would probably type that in. So now we have 9. So I got one additional property popping up where the agent typed in, now in this case, fixer. And then to view those, I'll go into the results and I'll open up one. So what do? We search by a word or phrase. Once we look in the remarks section, we will now see that they said it's either a TLC or a fixer. Oh, right there. Needs a bit of TLC. So it can kind of find that needle in the haystack, so to speak. All right, so that's kind of a handy feature. You're looking for something unusual. That's an option you could now try. All right, and of course you got the pictures here, but notice these other options. Just look at what else you can do with these pictures. Like what happens if I click this? Oh, gives me a nice gallery view. So now a quick way to zip through and kind of get an idea of, well, how much TLC does this need? Well, it needs a wall. Okay, no problem. So it shows you stuff that otherwise you have to go picture by picture. All right, I'll just close this tab up here and we're back to the listing. But if I were to open up the larger picture, got some nice detail here, and you can now notice down here at the bottom, we've got some additional little options. Hopefully that's showing up on yours. All right, so that's it for the picture. What else is going to show? Be aware of the little icons up at the top here. This will take me quickly to the map. So now I can see where this property is located. All right, and gives me some detail. And of course, now remember, you've got your satellite view, so we can see, well, what's happening in all the other areas. Okay, so we're surrounded by a farm and farmland and things like that. Nice size lot. All right, and there's the layers and all that. Let's say I'm kind of looking to the extent, well, how big is this farm or whatever? So I'm kind of moving around the map. I've now lost my property that I was working with, but this little crosshair feature up here, by clicking it, this will take me back to that property location. And notice I've also got this little walking guy here. I can now put him right on the road here and actually see what's going on in this particular area. Lots of corn. All right. All right, so that's what you're getting with those little features. So kind of look for what's clickable. But I could have done the same thing by clicking on this map again. And in this case, the agent who added this listing found that they have access to all the Google Street View images. So they put that in here. I can click right up here, look on Google Street View. And unfortunately, the agent that did this didn't know that they could actually have swung this camera around to see the property they're really trying to show. So by clicking on this picture, I can now swing it around, and now I've got a beautiful shot of that property. And when you add your listings and you do add that Google Street View, be aware that you can now move this image around. In fact, I could have maybe driven down the street, maybe there's a delivery truck in the way, and then kind of get a better angle. And it's like now we can see there's this massive fireplace in the building as well. Or we could have gone the other way to maybe get a different angle of that property. Well, not so much so, but be aware you can move that image around. All right, so that's it. And then one other thing too, when I first open up a listing, now I'm going to go back to the agent single line. This is your default view, and this is what you typically end up at when you do a quick search. And we are here. But if I open up a listing, that takes us into what's called the 360 property view. So this is currently your default view. You can change that to whatever you want it to be. And what that gives us is the ability to now see the listing, the tax record information, the photos, the history of the property. So we're tracking this property going back to as far as whatever we have as far as solds for your area. So we can see this property's been on the market multiple times, back as far as 2008. And we also have some foreclosure information we got the last time they were served and everything, and past sales that may not have gone through an MLS listing. So you are getting some extensive detail with this history. We can also see the parcel maps, which will show us several different map location information. We can see the dimensions highlighted in purple where it is. And then with this map, there's all sorts of things you could do, like play around with the layers. Flood map, is there any flooding we have to be worried about? So it's kind of encapsulating a lot of this detail into one display that you have. So you can pretty much go down the line and pick up additional information. Oh, there was foreclosure. It's rare that I actually see one of those popping up. And we can see detail about that foreclosure. All right, is there any open house? No. Is there any attachments? There's no attachments either. But that's what you're getting with the 360. I could go back to the listing, and there we are there. Now, you can change this to any other view that you like. Now, I found that you were used to seeing the agent single line with photo. So maybe this is more like what you had in your previous system, and maybe you want to go back to that. So here it is here, and that's nice, but unfortunately, once I exit out and come back, that will not be there. I would have to come up here and manually set that. Right here, it says set clear defaults. So by clicking here, I can now set that display as my starting default. So by clicking it, every day I do a search, it'll now quickly open up with this when I open up my listings. So customize the screen to do what you want it to do. All right, so that's that. You do have the tax public record search. I just want to point this out. I think I'm in Delaware County. No, I am not. Let's go into another county here, or township or whatever. So I'll go to county. So I've already got all 3 counties locked in here, which you can do. So every time you do a search, maybe you always want to get back to your part of New York State. So you could lock those fields in. And how did I do that? I went to the little gear and made sure that that's always a part of my search. All right, and then I could just use a map area or a particular street. Let's use a street. I use that 5 McCall. I think that's, I had problems with this last time too. Let's do the 103 partlet.
I think McCall just didn't have a space, Bill.
I'm sorry, McCall. I thought I put it in at first, but
Yeah, I think McCall just had no space when you did it earlier.
okay, let me try this one. For Christine, I can't mess that one up, hopefully.
Okay.
All right, so down, really, you know, maybe I pulled that up out of a different area. Does anyone have a street name I could use in one of those 3 counties?
Just put it in the chat. Here we go. Walnut.
Walnut? Do we have a house number? Let's just do Walnut.
Yeah, let's just do Walnut.
Okay, So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at all properties that happen to be on the street Walnut. I could have had a house number and focused on just one, but down
Oh,
here it
she
quickly
says
shows us.
11 Walnut, you could try.
Okay, let's start with 11 Walnut. Down here, it's found one tax record. And then by going to map, it'll show us where Walnut is and where is that one. Oh, that's why. I had a
There you
map
go.
already locked in there too. That's why I wasn't finding those others. Okay, so here's a Walnut. Looks like there's another Walnut somewhere. But then I could go back to criteria. And now notice it's showing 3 because I wasn't specific about what area I was looking at. Where before I had the circle and we had focused on just that one Walnut. If I get rid of the house number, it's now showing us that there's 149 walnuts out there. And then if I go to map, again, we're going to pull up those different areas. So we've got all sorts of walnuts popping up here. So I want to be a little more specific. Let's say I'm looking for something that's in Anianta. So I could go back here to criteria and I'll say, let's make sure we're in that particular township. All right, so I've got that. And now we're down to 28. So now we're looking at just one location for Walnut. The map will show us that. And there we are. So we can see the extent of Walnut. Maybe I wanted to use this just to create a flyer. I'm going to send out flyers to everyone that happens to live on Walnut. Maybe I sold a house there or whatever. And I could now go to results and I get a lot of detail. I can now see who owns each of these properties. Maybe I want to be a little more specific. I'm targeting a certain market. And what I'm going to do is go back to my criteria and I could say, you know what, when I send out this flyer, I want to make sure that I'm sending it to those that are currently owner occupied. So come over here, check this, and I'll say, make sure they are owner occupied. I just went from 28 down to 16 residents there. Is anyone on the do not mail list? If they are, I cannot legally send them anything. So I'll check that. I'm now down to 15. I lost 1. And I want to make sure that they've been living there at least a fair amount of time. If they just purchased a house, it's ridiculous to send them a flyer. So I'm going to go back, oh, let's say 5 years. And I'll say I'll go back to 4/1/2018. And I'll type in a minus at this point. That minus is now saying, let's start at that point and go further back in time. So I can now see 6 of those residents have actually lived there at least 5 years or longer. And now when I go to my map, I can see where they are located. And I can now get the results. And here we go. So I now have their addresses, their names. And how do you generate a mailing label? Well, you come over here and you select the ones you want to send something out to. And right here, you've got your print button. Yeah. At this point, we're now giving you pre-formatted labels. So this is using what's called a 5160 label. It's the most commonly used label size, and that's an industry standard. I could go to my local Staples store and they'll sell me their brand of the 5160. And here, since I've got the owner's name and their address, I'll click this. I'll come down and I want to print that, and it will now show me how it's going to format those labels. So you've got the names, the addresses, and it's in a nice address size label there. I'll close this, and let's say I want to go a little farther out in that neighborhood too. I don't want to stick with just Walnut because everyone's seen my sign locally. So I'll go back to results. And with my criteria, I'm now going to be a little more specific where I'm looking. Right now, I'm looking at just the street Walnut, but I'm going to go to map and let's look at a larger area. I'll zoom out a little bit. And I want to kind of hit this whole little neighborhood here. So I could use my drawing tool and say, you know what, let's hit from here over to here, down to here, over a little bit. All right. So I now want that shape. How come I'm not getting more check marks? Well, because the walnut is being very specific. It's saying, no, you want walnut within that shape. So I'll go back to my criteria and I'll delete out the street name Walnut. So now the shape takes over and we're now seeing that we've got 38 residents in that area. I'll go to map again. And these are all fulfilling the same requirements that I had before. Make sure they've been there 5 years or longer, owner occupied, and not on the do not mail list. So now I've got 28 that I can now send this flyer out to. Now, maybe you don't want to print the label. Maybe you want to dump it into some program where you could now print directly onto an envelope or a postcard. When I go to my results, here are all those residents. And down here, I could actually export. So I'll grab what I want. I'll check this box here. And now I could export those out and have that data available for use in other ways. One thing I would do though, earlier I saw one of these little bubbles on the screen. What this is showing me, these are past sales, there's a past expiration. And if any had a little green bubble in there, that would indicate that's an active listing. So I do not want to send out to another agent's client if they're currently on contract with them. So just make sure there's no greens popping up in that area. If that were the case, I would say, let's say this was green, I'll reach down and uncheck that one. So I know I'm not going to be sending anything out to that address. All right, so that was just some of the things you can do with the search, and that was public record. So you can break it down again by map, a county, zip code, however you need to pull it up. Or you could use these other fields. Maybe you're looking for a certain type of property, zoning, things like that, square footage. And that there you could actually add the fields that would be helpful for you to use. All right, and that's all in the search category here. All right. And of course, you can break it down by different property types. And once you do that, like say, if I go to multifamily, it's going to give me fields pertinent to that type of property. Maybe I'm looking for 2 units. Maybe we're in the college area and we're looking for some rentals or something. How much parking space do you need? Things like that. So different formats. I'm sure you're used to that already. That's all part of your search fields here. All right. Any questions popping up there, Jane?
No.
Okay. All right. So what do you think I should be going into?
I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts of something they wish they knew how to do? You could put it in the chat. Nothing yet.
Right. You can save the searches you want, or let's say I had to go back and view one of the previous searches I'd run just within this 1 hour session. Over here at the top right, notice it says recent searches. By clicking this, this will now take me back through everything I've done this morning. So maybe I would want to get back to this one where I was looking for the walnut search that I've done. Here it is right here. Click on it. And it'll take me back to that particular search. Oh, by the way, there's one of those green bubbles. So I know that this resident is currently working with another agent. That's showing it's an active listing. So that would be one that I'd probably want to unselect when I'm going to create the labels. But this is a handy feature. If ever you lose a search, you might be doing something and you click a wrong button and just lost everything I've done. It's always sitting over here. This will hold the last 30 searches that you've run. So kind of a handy little feature to have. Let me do a quick search and just show you how to save it so that you could use this again. You want me to touch upon auto email, Jane?
Sure.
Okay. So let's do a quick search. Let's say we are looking for a particular type of property here, single family. We're looking for something historic. So come down the style here, and maybe we're looking for a farmhouse or something historic. And of course, what do I want to do? I want to make sure I set that to or. There happens to be 8 in the area I'm looking at. I better define the area. Let's say we're looking at Shenango County here. And I'll use that. So right now there are 21 farmhouses, historic properties. And let's say that's what my client's looking for. And they do need at least 3 bedrooms in that or more. I would always encourage you to put a plus after the number of bedrooms. I happen to have 18, and I'll say, you know what, for whatever reason, we do need 2 bathrooms. That might be a long shot here. We got 15. Good. All right. So we're looking for anything that falls within this criteria. Maybe price isn't an object. And I do want to now find this for a client. When I set up the search, I could ask them, do you mind if I automate the search? That way, when one comes on the market, you will have it within your inbox within seconds. And they'll probably be agreeable to that. So I'll come down here and look at the results. So typically you might be opening this up and quickly email them out, but at this point I could create the auto email and it will get this group of listings initially. So what do? I want to come down here and save the search. Click on save. Now, by clicking the new save search, this allows me to send it off to the side and use it over and over. But in this case, I want to create a new auto email. So I'll click this. I'll use one of my contact. Actually, let's create a brand new contact here. I'll just create new contact. I want to show you one feature that pops up. I got, I'll use a previous name I had here. Create a little last name though. All right, again, their addresses. Now, in this case, when you're sending out to someone, if you do want to put in multiple addresses, just put a comma between each address here. So now they're both going to receive these in their separate inboxes. You can change the salutation to your liking. Phone numbers, of course, show all fields. Are they pre-approved for a mortgage? What's their current address? What business are they in? And jot down any notes. So get the information that you want to set up for your client. And this is interesting here. Enable reverse prospecting. Let's say you as an agent have one of the listings I just found, and I'm sending your agent to my client. If this box is checked on my side, you will see it was I who sent your listing out. They'll also give you the ability to now reach back to me as the agent and just ask about, well, what do they think about the crumbling brick wall in the backyard or something. So it just opens up some dialogue. If I uncheck this, you will know your listing had been sent by another agent, but you don't know who sent it now. So I'm kind of anonymous because I uncheck this. And that's fine. You don't have to do it, but I'd say it's probably good because it does open up some dialogue among the other agents. All right, so that's done. I'll come down here and click save. And you also have the ability of texting the listings to them. Now, I may have their cell phone number, but I cannot text from the system as it stands now. I would have to ask them, do you want to be texted? So when I check this box here, it's now going to create an option I can now send to them, which I'll do. And it's their choice now if they want to supply me with that cell phone number to be texted. So subject, I'll just say farmhouse. Okay, whatever. And then they get a welcome message. They have to click this welcome message within 30 days of receiving it to actually have the search begin sending them listings. So basically it says what you've done here and let them know. Well, as soon as you get this, click on it to start that search. By the way, if they don't click it within 23 days, you will get an email saying your client still has not opened up that welcome message. So it gives you another week to reach back to them and say, are you still interested? If not, if you couldn't find it, I can send you another login screen or welcome message. And then down here, pretty much you're probably going to use something like an ASAP. How quickly do you want to get these sent out to them? By using ASAP, as soon as that listing hits the market, they will have it within seconds. And you don't even have to be at the computer. So it's a nice convenience tool on your end. And then I'll click save. So what happens? They just receive those 15 listings, and as any new listing comes on the market, they will start receiving them. All right. Now, what if you do create the auto email? How do you go back and work on that? Where is it even stored? Well, I'll go up here to my matrix. So I've created this automated search. I'll go to my matrix, and there are your auto emails sitting right there. I'll click on it. And here's my brand new search. Now, notice these colored indicators that you're getting. If it's green with a white check mark, that indicates it was sent and they've actually opened it up. And I can see the last time they logged in to take a look. The one that I just created is just an open circle, and that indicates it was sent, but they have not yet opened it up. And notice it says never here. And then I sent out a couple others, and these are in red. And that's where they ignored that welcome message. They went past the 30-day time that they have to open up that search, and it basically just expired on them. I had received an email saying they had still not opened it, but I didn't reach back to them because all my clients are fictitious here. All right, so interesting stuff though, but if, let's say I just get noticed, they still haven't opened it, I could open up their search. And right here, it gives me the ability to resend the welcome message. Just say, okay, couldn't find it. Okay, I'll send you a new one. And there it is here. So make sure you click it. You can also go in and change the criteria that they're looking for. Maybe they're not getting enough properties to look at in the area I selected. So we could expand that area or even change the criteria of the price or styles. So handy little feature in that you can now automate your searches. All right. How are we doing on time here? I've pretty much gone past my time limit here, but take a look at it. It's a handy little feature. If you haven't tried that, it's like, oh, I want to find out more about this auto email. Remember on your home page, you do have this Matrix Learning Lab. I'm going to go ahead and click it. Now, we give you a series of videos you can watch right away. If I scroll down, notice we've got a group of videos that are probably going to be helpful in the beginning. You could then view them over here. But if you scroll down a little bit farther, there's an option to now search by what you're looking for. I'm going to look for this auto email instruction. I'll click that. All right, do the search. And right here, it's going to give me a short little video on how do you create a search and then automate that search. So this is a great resource just to go and find out how do I do a CMA or whatever the case might be. And this was a short little video. When you click on it, it will now open up that video. You'll click start, and I believe this one's done by Dave March, who's one of the creators of Matrix. But he'll walk you through the steps that you want to be aware of in the beginning. All right, so there's a couple random things that I threw out there. Hopefully those are helpful. And we will have more of these as time goes on too. So, and then Jane will give you a topic that we'll be covering. But that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bill. I'm not sure what our topic is for next week, but stay tuned to your Matrix news and we'll post that. And if you have suggestions for what you'd like to see, I know at some point we're going to cover showing time. We're going to cover the Lone Wolf zip form product. We're still waiting for them to kind of straighten that out. We'll probably do mobile apps like MLS Touch if you haven't tried that one yet. So stay tuned and we'll get this posted later today too. So thank you, everybody.